Hello creative designers, welcome again to my channel. In case you are new here, my name is Gibbs. In today's video, I'm going to be showing us how to make this bubu kaftan that we have here, and as you can see, it has a zipper and it also has a mandarin collar. So if this is something that interests you, let's go straight into today's video. So to start with, you're going to be folding our fabric selvage to selvage. Now remember, the Ankara fabric comes in 45 inches, which is way more shorter than what we actually need for this style. So in order to achieve the desired length, we are going to be folding our fabric selvage to selvage first. Then you're going to go ahead and measure out the length of the gown you're working with. Okay, so the length of the gown I'm working with is actually 57 inches, which of course the length of the Ankara, which is 45 inches, will not have been able to cut that out. So in order to do that, we are going to fold selvage to selvage, and then we are going to rule out the length of the gown we are working with. Now you could decide to rule a starting line at the top corner like so, but for me, I won't be ruling out that top corner. So the length of the gown I'm working with is 57 inches. I'm going to be adding 2 extra inches to that, of which half of an inch from the 2 inches is going to be my joining allowance at the top, while the remaining 1.5 inches will serve as the hemming allowance at the lower part of this gown. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and measure out 59 inches like so. So what I have there is actually 59 inches, which is the length of my gown plus the 2 inches for joining and hemming allowance. Okay, now after you have cut that, we actually need 2 pieces for this. One is just for the front part. We need another length, another set of this to serve for the back. Okay, so I've already gone ahead to cut out that same length, 59 inches, in 2 places, of which one of this is going to serve as the front block, while the other one is going to serve as the back block. Now I'm going to put those two together like so, and then I'm going to extend the one at the top by about 1 inch. I will extend it to the front by 1 inch, so that I'm going to have my zipper allowance for the back. Okay, so it just means that the back block or the back fabric, the one I'm going to be using for the back, is 1 inch longer than the front part. Okay, can you see? So that 1 inch there is going to serve as my zipper allowance. Okay, now we are going to be imputing our vertical measurement. First, you want to impute your shoulder line. If you want, for me, I will not be imputing that. So from that top corner there, I'm going to impute my front length measurement. Okay, I'm going to be imputing my front length measurement, which is 17.5 inches. It is actually 17 inches. I'm going to be adding half of an inch to that. Why? Because I'm going to be joining this at the shoulder line when it's time to join by half of an inch. So that is my front length or half length. Next, I'm going to be imputing my waist to hip measurement, which is actually 8 inches, but I'm going to be adding half of an inch to that to give me 8.5 inches. Okay. Next thing you're going to do is to impute your knee line. Okay, so my knee line is 37.5 inches. It's actually 37 inches, but I'm going to be adding half of an inch to that. Okay, I'm going to be adding half of an inch for joining, which is 37.5 inches. So I'll just rule that line across 37.5 inches, just like so. So you want to impute whatever yours is, just like I'm doing in the video. Good. Now we have our knee line, and of course the last line there will be our hemline. Okay, now after you have imputed your half length, so we have the half length, we have the hip line, we have the knee line, and of course we have the hemline. The next measurement you want to impute is your chest line measurement. Okay, your chest line is your bust divided by 6 plus 1.5. That's how to get your chest line. Just impute your chest line. Mine is actually 7.5 inches, but I'm just going to be adding half of an inch to that to give me 8 inches. Okay, so I have 7.5 plus half of an inch for joining at the top corner by, that's 8 inches. Good. Now that you've gotten your chest line, the next measurement you want to impute, which is not so important but we might need it, is your nipple point. So your shoulder to nipple point, You want to impute that. Mine is 10 inches, 10.5 plus half of an inch, that is 11 inches. Okay, so we have our chest line, we have our nipple line or the nipple point, we have our front length or half length, we have the hip line, and then we have the knee line, and of course the last one there is the hemline. Good. Now that you've gotten that, you want to come in and impute your neck width. So the neck width I'm working with is 3 inches for both front and back. Neck width 3 inches. For the back neck depth, I'm going to be using half of an inch. I mean 1 inch for the back neck depth, while the front neck depth is 3 inches. So the back neck depth is 1 inch, while the front neck depth is 3 inches. Okay, so now I'm imputing the back neck depth, and I'm just going to connect with my ruler just like so. So I'm going to be cutting out the back neck depth first before we manipulate the front neck depth. Okay, so but I'm just going to be ruling that out so you can see the markings clearly on the fabric. Now after you have gotten your neck width and your neck depth, the next thing you want to impute is the length of your sleeve. Remember, this is a cut together sleeve. The sleeves were not joined together. Okay, they cut together. Now as you can see, because I extended my fabric by 1 inch, one of the fabric is 1 inch longer than the other by 1 inch. Okay, is 1 inch longer than the other. Okay, so I'm just ruling out that 1 inch because I'm going to be cutting it out eventually. Just rule the 1 inch just like so till you get to your nipple point. Now, to get to your sleeve length, you want to measure from the nape of your nape, that is the midpoint of your back, all the way to where you want the sleeve to get to. For me, I want my sleeve to be 25 inches. Okay, but here I have about 18.75 or so or thereabout left, which is not going to be enough. So at the end of the day, I'm going to be adding band to the hem of this sleeve. Okay, so I need 25 inches. If you want yours to be shorter, you can leave it this way. So what I'm going to do is to come down from that point by 1 inch. Now this one inch is for our shoulder slant. Remember, our shoulders are not straight, so I'm just going to connect the 1 inch to meet up with my neck depth or my neck width. Okay, just to form our shoulder slant. This is optional, but I like to do it just to give me fittings, just to make the dresses or whatever I'm making to fit properly. But remember, our shoulders are not straight, they are actually slanted. Now after you have gotten the shoulder slant, it is now time to impute our horizontal measurement. Okay, it's time to impute our horizontal measurement. So now on my half length or the front length, on the front length area or the half length as some people call it, you want to impute, I mean on your chest line, you want to impute your bust measurement. Now to your original bust measurement, you're going to add 1 inch to that. So if yours is 33, add 1 inch to it, that's 34. Then divide whatever you get, which is 34 divided by 4. Now the 1 inch is for ease, which is 0.25 ease all around. Okay, 0.25 times 4 will of course give us 1. So the ease on this dress is actually 1 inch. 1 inch. So I imputed my bust divided by 4 plus 1 inch for sewing allowance. Now on the waistline, add whatever you have for your waist circumference plus 1. Then divide whatever you get by 4, impute it, and then add 1 inch for your sewing allowance. On your hip line, add 1 inch to your original hip measurements. Divide that by 4 and then add 1 inch for your seam allowance. Just add 1 inch to all your measurements before you divide by 4. That is what we are doing. Now on the knee line, you're going to measure what you have, the total measurement of the thing, or you're going to measure what you have on your hip line, then you're going to minus 2 inches from it. So for me, I have about 11.75, and then I'm going to minus 2 inches from 11.75. At the end of the day, I will have 9.75. So I'm just going to impute that 9.75 on my knee line. So you're going to be reducing whatever measurement you have on your hip line by 2, then impute that on your knee line. Take whatever you have on your knee line now and impute it on your hemline. Okay, so your hemline and your knee line have the same measurement, which is 2 inches lower or shorter than the measurement you have on your hip line. Good. Now that you have measured that, you're just going to connect the knee line to your hemline with a straight line, and then connect that point to meet up with your hip line. Next, you're going to connect your hip line to meet up with your waistline. Okay, you're going to connect that point to meet up with your waistline, just like so. Next, you're going to connect your waistline to meet up with that measurement, which is your bust measurement on your chest line. Can you see what we have there? It's simple. So now that you've connected those points together, this is what you're going to have. Can you see? To eliminate the sharp points on your hip line, go in with your curve like so, and then connect those dots together just like so. Now that we've gotten that, on the knee line as well, you want to reduce or take away the sharp points there. Blend the sharp points together because you don't want to have any sharp points on your knee line. Now back to the back block. We want to eliminate zipper bulge on our back block. Okay, so on the waistline, that's I'm working on the back now, you're going to go in by half of an inch from the waistline. Remember, the zipper allowance we added was 1 inch, so I'm going in there by half of an inch, and then I'm going to connect that point to meet up with my neck depth. Just look at what I'm doing in the video. I'm going to connect it in a slanted manner to meet up with my neck depth. So the point is going to terminate on my neck depth, okay, by half of an inch. So I'm going in by half of an inch on my waistline, and I'm going to connect the same half of an inch line to meet up with my hip line, just like so. So I'm going to connect the half of an inch line to meet up with my hip line like so. Now, if you did this properly, you will realize that by the time you are done fixing your zipper, it will just lay flat, like beautiful on your back. You don't want to have zipper bulge. Now, I'm doing this on my waistline, okay? So just blend in the points like so, and then reblend to meet up with your hip line. Connect everything together just like so. Now that we've gotten that, eliminate the sharp points on the waistline, just like I'm doing in the video. And now back to the chest line now. You're going to measure what you have from your shoulder slant line to your chest line. Now, remember I told us to measure in 1 inch. Now that 1 inch, you're going to be cutting it out. The 1 inch extra there is as a result of extending our front block by the time we wanted to construct the zipper allowance. So I'm just going to measure what we have on the shoulder slant to my chest line. I have about 7 inches left, which is way shorter than what I need. Remember, I'm going to be joining this by 1 inch. So by the time I take away 1 inch, I'll be left with 6 inches. By the time I join it by half of an inch at the upper part, I'll be left with about 5.5, which is very, very small. So what I'm going to do is to come down from that chest line by another 1 inch, which is 8 inches now. So this 1 inch is what I'm going to be using as my joining allowance eventually, and this is going to serve as my new chest line. So I'll just rule a line across so that I will remember. Now we have a lot of lines, but if you follow what I'm doing, you're going to get what I'm trying to say. Okay, so that 1 inch is what I'm going to be connecting to form that shape that we have on this dress, and I'm going to be joining it by that same 1 inch when it's time. Just follow the video, you understand what I'm saying. Now the next thing we are going to do is to construct the shape we have on the dress, the butterfly shape. I don't know what to call it, but it's a butterfly extension. Now, anything you're creating must stop on your hip line. It must not exceed your hip line. Whatever shape you're creating must stop exactly on your hip line. You don't want to exceed that hip line point. If you do, this dress will not have a fitting at all. So what you're going to do is go in with your free hand first. I like to go in with my free hand first. Then when I'm satisfied with what I have, then I can go in with my curve and just blend that in, just like I'm doing in the video. Now remember, I'm actually joining this point to meet up with the 1 inch I came down by on my chest line, which is my new chest line. So I'm just blending this to give me a very fine curve around there. As you can see, the whole drawing or the whole sketches I have, the sketch I have is actually terminating on my hip line, Please do not exceed your hip line. So everything must stop exactly on your hip line. Now that we are done doing this, the next thing we want to do is, of course, to cut out, because we are actually done. We are done. That is basically all for this. So we are just going to cut out. First, you want to cut out your zipper line, just like I'm doing in the video. Be careful when doing this. Next, you notch your hip line area so that you will identify it when it's time to join. Next, I'll cut out the shape just like we have there. You want to cut out the 1 inch extra, which is the excess fabric you have. Then you're going to cut out your shoulder slants. And at the end of the day, this is what we have. So we have the back and we have the front. So I'm just going to take away the pin because I actually pinned this down when I was, cutting so that the fabric do not shift won't shift rather. So I'll take out the pin so that I can work on the front block alone. Okay, please make sure you notch your knee line. This is very important. Make sure you notch your knee line. You don't need to notch the hip line because everything will align eventually. So now that we are done, I'll just take this out because I need to work on the front block. Now here is the front. Remember, the neck width for the front is actually 3 inches by 3 inches depth. The neck width is 3 inches, the neck depth is 3 inches. Okay, so now we're going to cut out the 3 inches neck depth that we have. But before we cut out, now look at this shape we have on the original dress. So I'm going to be coming down from my neck depth by 1.5 inches. Can you see? I'm going to come down from the original 3 inches neck depth by another 1.5 inches. Can you see? Next, I'm going to go in from the center front by half of an inch. You could do 0.75. But remember, this is on fold. So by the time you open it up, you're going to have 1 inch. So if you go in by half of an inch, by the time you open it up, you have 1 inch. So I'm just going to connect the half inch to meet up with my neck width just like so. Remember, we are coming down by 1.5 inches, then we are going in by half of an inch or 0.75 maximum. Then you're going to connect those points together just like so. You also measure 0.5 or 0.75 on your neck width line so that you have a straight line. Next, I'm going to connect those points together just like so. So this is what we'll have. So you go in by half inch, you come down by 1.5 inches. Good. Now the next thing we're going to do is to go ahead and cut out this shape. We're going to cut out this shape. Remember, I told us it is on fold. So if you went in by half of an inch, or if you go in by half of an inch, you're going to have 1 inch at the end of the day. If you go in by 0.75 inches, by the 75 inch, by the time you open it up, you'll have 1.5 inches. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and cut out that shape. Be careful when doing this. Make sure whatever you're cutting actually terminates on the markings you have on your fabric. Okay, so now I'm done cutting this out, and this is what we have. When I was done cutting out this fabric, I actually love the pattern I have on the center front. It looks so beautiful. Okay, so when you're cutting your fabric, please pay attention to the details you have on your fabric. This is very, very important. Can you see how those lines are lined? Okay, so now that we are done cutting out this, I'm going to put this on fold again because we need to cut out the facing. Now, I know some of us will be wondering, it has a mandarin collar, so why are we adding facing? You need this facing, don't worry. By the time we start to join, you understand why. So you just want to put an extra fabric under your front block. Make sure the center front aligns with the center front of the new fabric and just construct your facing. Is about 2.5 inches wide. So my facing is 2.5 inches wide. Okay, I just went ahead to cut out the exact same shape I have on my front block. So this is the facing for the front. Now it's time to cut the facing for the back. You are also going to repeat the same thing for the back. Put the back on fold and then the new fabric on fold. Connect your facing lines like so, 2.5 inches wide, and just cut out the exact same shape you have for the center back, or the back is actually 2.5 inches wide. I said it before. Connect it like so. I expect everyone here to be able to cut out facing actually. So we are done cutting out the facing for the back, and this is what we have. Okay, this is what we have. Can you see? Now it's time to work on the sleeve. Now remember, I told us I'm going to be adding band to this. sleeve because I want it to stop around my wrist. Okay, I don't want it to get to my wrist, so it's a midi sleeve. Okay, I want it to stop around this part of my hand. Okay, so I'm just going to measure what I have there. I have about 8 inches wide. Okay, so it is about 8 inches wide. So I'm going to cut out an extra band to join to it because I want this sleeve to be about 25 inches long. Now the band I want to work with is actually 3 inches. I want it to be 3 inches wide, but remember I'm going to be joining this by half of an inch to the main block. I'm going to be joining the band to the main block by half of an inch. Then I'm going to be turning it in with another 1 inch. Okay, like on the hemline I'm going to be turning it in by 1 inch. So that is 1.5 inches plus the 3 inches for my band. That will give me 4.5 inches. So I'm going to be cutting out 4.5 inches wide of band. Okay, so the width of this band is actually 4.5 inches. So I'll just measure that, and the length is 8 inches. Okay, the length is 4.5 and the width is 8 inches actually. So now this is the band. Can you see? So I'm going to be joining it in by half of an inch. Now creative designers, when cutting out your band or your fabric, make sure the patterns align properly. Okay, make sure they align properly because you don't want to make mistake. So I actually cut out 4 pieces for my band, two for the front and two for the back. Okay, remember we have two hands, of course. So now we are done with the band, and this is what we have next. I'm just wearing out this lace fabric because this is what I'll be using to design the center front of my fabric, and we are supposed to beat, but in my next video I'm going to be showing you how to join this whole fabric together. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you in my next video. Do not fail to subscribe.